Today from the Global Lane, religious freedom around the world, standing firm in Washington, never again. ICE raids and changing asylum rules, what you're not hearing from the mainstream American media. Financially strapped and fatigued, what you can do to bless your pastor. And more LGBTQ correctness, this time gender identity pronouns, and one of America's favorite cookies. And it's all right here on the Global Lane. An independent report by the British government says Christians are the most persecuted religious group in the world, and persecution is still on the rise. The report's publication was marked in Rome by a meeting organized by the British Embassy to the Holy See in the Basilica of St. Bartholomew. The report found a variety of factors behind anti-Christian oppression, including aggressive nationalism and a rise of Islamist extremism. Here's Sally Axworthy, British ambassador to the Holy See.
The treatment of Christian minorities is a bellwether for how all minorities are treated. So if Christians suffer, that usually goes together with the abuse of human rights more generally. And he also says that Christians tend to speak truth to power, which can make them a particular focus of persecution. But he makes very clear that freedom of religion and belief, the universal human right, is for all, for everyone, as he says, without fear or favor.
Meanwhile, in Washington, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo convened the second annual Ministerial Summit on Global Religious Freedom. More than 1,000 people from around the world attended, including foreign ministers and representatives from more than 30 countries. In an exclusive interview with our David Brody, Pompeo explained why the annual Religious Freedom Summit is significant for religious minorities.
We know we're blessed here. It's our first freedom enshrined in the U.S. Constitution, but that's not the case everywhere. And our mission set is to highlight its importance, to educate leaders around the world about how important this is, how it can make your country better and stronger if you'll allow people of every faith to practice their faith, or if they choose not to, fine too. And it's a wonderful opportunity.
Religious freedom in the Middle East is of particular concern. Tony Perkins, chairman of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, talked about northeast Syria. He suggested the Kurdish region is a shining example of a place committed to tolerance of varied faiths.
We believe what's happening there in northeast Syria could become a model for the rest of the Middle East about religious freedom and living together in peace, allowing one another to live out their faith. And that's what religious freedom is. It's not the freedom of worship. Rather, it's the freedom of religion, the ability to live your life according to your faith. A lot of discussion at the ministerial to advance religious freedom about the American journey of unalienable rights, that we understand that this right to freedom, religious freedom, is a human right. It's not a right that was granted just to Americans. It was not a right that was granted to people by government anywhere. See, our founders understood that this was a latent human right. It was there but unseen. It required the leadership, the visionary leadership, to uncover that freedom and hold to that freedom and protect that freedom. A visionary leadership that sees the latent, fundamental human right of religious freedom. And we believe it's incumbent upon us to stand with those in northeast Syria, in that region, that want to bring this freedom to the forefront. Because we believe in the growing body of evidence suggests that what follows this freedom is greater social stability, economic development and freedom, and all people.
So what should and can be done to protect the religious rights of people around the world? British religious freedom advocate Lord David Alton provided some compelling historical context.
Following the horrors of the Holocaust, men and women said, well, we mustn't allow this to happen again. Tragically, never again has happened all over again in the period since then. However, they did make a really big effort holding people to account, ensuring that justice is done, so that we don't give a green light to every other dictator and despot or leader of some militia here or there to think they can do whatever they want with impunity and that they will never be brought to justice. So the Genocide Convention, to which the United States, the United Kingdom and many of the other countries that will be represented here this evening are signatories to, was one of the outcomes of those terrible times. Raphael Lemkin, who was the Jewish lawyer who'd lost over 40 of his family in the Holocaust, he was the person who coined the phrase genocide. So coming from the Greek and the Latin, the idea of the tribe and the killing of the entire tribe, the killing of whole hosts of people because of their ethnicity, their religion, their particular characteristics, whatever it may be. So there is the word genocide. The other thing that happened in 1948 was that Eleanor Roosevelt and a group of other enlightened Americans, but others from around the globe, but from all sides, left, right and centre politically, decided to craft a Universal Declaration of Human Rights, in which there are 30 articles, and some are closer to my heart than others. The paramount right, of course, is the right to life itself. And for me, from the womb to the tomb, every life is precious because we are each of us made in God's image. So having a faith, I believe that it is important to safeguard that person made in God's image with every last breath in my body, that we should fight for life itself. But there are other articles I care about. Article 19, which is the right of the gathering of information, the freedom to spread information, the access to news. If you live in somewhere like North Korea, one of the most closed societies in the world, this is an article that is violated every day of every week of every year. And then there is Article 18. And Article 18 is really what we're here to talk about tonight, about religious freedom. Because particularly in the aftermath of what had happened to the Jewish people, but not just them alone, but after the horrors of Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. And I'm always struck that it's my good friend Jonathan Sacks, Lord Sacks, who was the chief rabbi in Britain, who always says, do not ask where was God at Auschwitz. Ask where was man.
Asylum, ICE, and immigration when we come back.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
The Trump administration has announced a startling change for migrants seeking asylum in the United States. Those coming to the southern border will now be required to first apply elsewhere. Migrants traveling through Central America or Mexico would first need to seek asylum there. Only if their application is denied in those countries would they be allowed to seek asylum here in the USA. Also, those big visible immigration and customs enforcement raids announced by the president seem to be mostly a trickle. But Mr. Trump says they did occur quietly. He praised ICE, saying its efforts were successful and legal.
People come into our country illegally, and they go out legally. Every person taken out had papers, and we had court orders.
Joining us with more is Maria Espinosa. She's National Director of the Remembrance Project. So, Maria, good to see you again. I know there were quite a few people protesting those ICE raids recently. And at one demonstration in Colorado, protesters actually replaced an American flag with a Mexican one. Why such hostility to this president? Because I know, like Barack Obama and other presidents before him, following the law and deporting illegal immigrants, that's his modus operandi, same as them. Why the hostility?
Well, I think you have a very far left social movement right now, and you can see that even within the Democrat Party, the far left socialists are trying to hijack the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party certainly is not the party that I grew up with and that my parents supported. But President Trump is doing everything he is legally supposed to do and within his powers, and it's his job as Commander-in-Chief, Gary, to protect this country, protect every single American family, and that's what he's doing, attempting to do. But you can see the opposition that he's felt by just simply doing his job.
Well, let's talk about some of that. I know many people would say this new policy of not granting asylum to those who actually come to the U.S. southern border is un-American, not what America's all about. So what do you say about that?
Well, first of all, we are a nation with a history of immigration. I'm not an immigrant. My father was born in Mexico. My mom is a fifth-generation Texan. So we have to be very careful in how we define, the definitions. Words, they matter. So when you hear people out there talking about that we are a nation of immigrants, that's simply not true. So, and as to the asylum seekers, they are supposed to stop and seek asylum at the first country that they reach. You don't get to select which country and shop around if you want this one who's going to give you the benefits. And right, as you know, if they come here illegally, they get to work, they get social benefits, they get welfare, they get free hospitalization, free medical. Americans don't even get that.
And the Trump administration, of course, has received a lot of criticism for, quote, inhumane treatment going on at processing and detention facilities along the southern border. Now, you're in Texas. I'm sure you visited them. What have you witnessed, Maria?
Well, we are on our 29th Remembrance tour. This is our second leg, and we did stop in McAllen, Texas. And what we've heard, of course we can't get in, but what we have heard is that they are given 3 meals a day. They are recreated. They are taken to the movies, by the way, and they have air conditioning. They have clean areas and clothing, and also hospitalization, medical attention, whatever they need there. The ICE agents are even taking them to their doctor's appointment.
On occasion, the media reports about illegal immigrant crimes. I know in April of this year, an illegal immigrant was arrested for raping a 7-year-old girl in Virginia. In May, another immigrant in the country illegally was convicted of raping a 12-year-old in Mississippi. And I know there's another one about 3 years ago in Texas involving a 6-year-old. And I know, like most Americans, I want to see this abuse of children prevented. And I'm sure you do, too. What else is happening? What should be done about it?
Enforce the existing laws. We absolutely should not negotiate, Gary, on our laws, our safety, the safety of our community, safety of our families and children. There's so much in the media that is very biased, that is talking about the young girl and her father who drowned. And that is sad, and it is one instance. That father and the mother put themselves and their children in that situation. I'm not seeing in the media, they absolutely ignore us, ignore the angel moms and dads and family members. They don't highlight the killings, killing after killing. There is right here in Texas, an illegal alien has killed probably hundreds of elderly over the last 10 years that he has worked in the medical field.
And I know in Prince George's County, Maryland, they're not even arresting illegal immigrants who have warrants out for their arrests. They're letting them go. Okay, Maria Espinosa, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Gary. God bless y'all.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Protect your sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
More than half of all pastors, 57%, say they feel discouraged, stressed, and fatigued. And no wonder. Many work between 50 and 70 hours per week. Half of them earn less than $50,000 per year. So when was the last time you encouraged your pastor? The National Association of Evangelicals has launched a campaign called Bless Your Pastor. And here to fill us in is Brian Kluth. He's a best-selling author and National Director of Financial Health for the NAE. Brian, it's good to have you with us. So what is Bless Your Pastor and why are you doing it?
Gary, thanks for having me on. We're excited because Bless Your Pastor is an opportunity for Christians and churches across America to intentionally bless their pastor. And as you mentioned, pastors are discouraged. Many of them face difficult financial challenges. And when their congregation, people in their congregation, or the church as a whole, does things to really serve them and bless them, it makes such a difference in their life and such a difference to their family. So we're launching this movement to help that happen.
So, Brian, many people think when they put money in the offering plate that it's helping to keep the lights on, the air conditioning going in their church buildings, of course, but they also believe it kind of provides plenty for the pastor to live on, but that's not necessarily so. So what's the truth about pastors' salaries, their financial health?
Yeah, the truth is most people are not aware of what pastors are really paid. But when we really go into the numbers, 50% of pastors are paid under $50,000 a year. And again, that's working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. 60% of pastors receive no retirement, no health care, and no employee benefits from their church. In many churches, they're small. It's not, people think, oh, there's a mega church pastor, there's a celebrity pastor. Well, the reality is 80% of churches in America have under 200 people in attendance on Sundays. And the average budget in America is $125,000 for the church. So 50% of churches have under $125,000 to take care of missions, take care of the pastor, take care of the facilities. And so there's just not a lot of money to go around. And so this movement is really much bigger than a paycheck. It's really about what can an individual Christian do according to their skills, their abilities, what they possess, to really go out of their way to serve their pastor, bless their pastor, and their church staff.
I'm sure some people would say that pastoring's a calling and their families must live in poverty or at least have a lower standard of living than most members in their church.
I do think people just think, well, the pastor's fine, God takes care of them. But what most people don't realize is the way God takes care of them is through the love and the care and the concern of the people in the congregation.
I know that there are other ways to bless a pastor than just increasing his salary. I know when you were 45 years old, you took a $70,000 pay cut to become a senior pastor. So how did your church family make up that difference? What did they do?
Yeah, the reality was I did take that $70,000 pay cut because it was something I felt God wanted me to do. And I always like to say where God guides, he provides, and what he orders, he pays for. And so I took the pay cut, but when I got to my church, what I discovered was my people were wonderful to me. There were people that gave us food. There were people that watched our children. There were people that shared their vacation home with us, people that fixed our cars, people that did car projects for us. When my wife had cancer, an 8-year cancer journey, they helped take her to get her chemotherapy. They would give us gift cards to help our family so we could go out to dinner at night. And my wife, we didn't have to worry as a family to, set up the meal or prepare the meal or clean up after the meal. And so there were just all kinds of things our church did, and even helped us pay the medical bills because there were a lot of medical bills in that situation. So beyond the paycheck, there was just so many ways that they loved us so very, very well.
That's a great idea. A simple thing like a gift card to a nice restaurant so you and your wife can go out and have a nice meal, get a break. Also maybe watch the kids while you're doing it for you. That's a great idea. So what's your goal here then, Brian? I have a feeling it goes beyond just simple awareness. People saying, oh, what a shame, and then just patting their pastors on the back and telling them, hey, you delivered a good sermon today. What's the goal here?
Well, the goal is because of Lilly Endowment, they've given us NAE a significant grant to provide free resources to literally every church in America and every Christian in America. And so what we have is we have a little flyer, 50 creative ways to show and share God's love for your pastor and church staff. And the goal is that Christians would get hold of that and that church boards would see that and they would distribute that to their congregation. We also have a little 7-minute training video so the church board knows exactly what to do. We make it very, very easy for them. And so it's the idea of distributing that, watching the video, distributing the brochure, and then also we're encouraging churches to take a annual pastor appreciation offering for the pastor and the church staff.
Okay, some great ideas to bless your pastor. Brian Kluth, National Director of Financial Health of the National Association of Evangelicals. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you, and God bless you.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religion he has, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
I don't know about you, but I've always loved Oreo cookies. My wife's homemade cookies are better, but I've loved Oreos from the time I was a child. And no, this is not a paid endorsement, but now this. The Nabisco Company has launched a new campaign to celebrate gender identities and expressions. You can now purchase Oreos wrapped in a new cookie package called Ask Me My Pronouns. Yes, Nabisco has the right to pander to the LGBTQ community by marketing Oreo cookies in these packages, but really, has it come to this? Ask Me My Pronoun cookie packages? More LGBTQ indoctrination for the masses? It reminds me of what the activist mommy recently said about the pronoun police.
They want to make sure that we say thyself and airself and verself and terself, instead of the homophobic pronouns that we used to use. Now, if you don't abide by these gender-sensitive policies and pronouns, you're called a racist, misogynistic, homophobic, privileged bigot. March's edition of Time magazine said this: every different type of identity that exists should be supported. Look, people, this is stupid. This is literally one of the most embarrassing moments in our nation's history.
Elizabeth Johnston went on to say that America has become so open-minded that our brains are falling out. I agree. And here's another example, all in the name of tolerance. Progressives in Portland, Oregon really need to have their heads examined. Some parents there are up in arms over these photos from a 2018 Drag Queen Story Hour at the St. John's Public Library. It looks like Drag Queen Story Hour became more than just a man dressed as a woman reading stories to little kids and toddlers. This is roll around and lie on the drag queen time. I know the event organizers would say, oh, it was all in good fun, a delightful, innocent time of play. Nope, not a good idea. Folks, that's what pedophiles do. They tell children, hey kids, just roll around on the ground and then lie on one another. Well, we've told you how officials at one Drag Queen Story Hour in Houston discovered that one man participating in Drag Queen Story Hour there was a convicted child sex offender. Folks, let's not go to the extremes and teaching people tolerance for those who may be different than most of us. Wrestling around with a parent or a sibling is one thing, but little kids should not be taught that it's okay to lie on strangers and play around in this way. That's setting them up for sexual abuse disguised as fun play. In Matthew 25:40, Jesus said, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So let's treat our children and grandchildren as we treat Jesus, showing them love. And let's protect them from gender confusion, shield them from potentially harmful situations, and people bent on destroying their innocence. Well, that's it from the Global Lane. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Twitter. And until next time, be blessed.